All right, good morning. Sunday morning paint session. Off to a little later start than normal. 6:22 here. Something like that. I was up till like 1 in the morning, so needed to sleep in a little bit more than normal. All right. Let's pick up where we left off. I feel like yesterday was almost like a work day, except I was working on stuff I wanted to work on. All right. So we've got. I need to pick up this room some. It was under construction yesterday. I spent most of the day working on my display case thing, which is it's done. I'm just not fully loaded with stuff, so I'm probably going to do a video on that when it's out. But I actually wasn't expecting it to take as long to build as it did. It wasn't complicated. It's just time consuming. There we go. Let's lock that there. Okay, so we got these three guys that we got done yesterday, and we started working on this fellow over here. That's what we're going to pick up off. So. Yeah, I spent what would I say? I'd say probably 6 hours working on it. I mean, I needed to do other things too. We needed to go on and do real life stuff as well. But as far as in this room, yeah, it was probably 6 hours, maybe 5. I don't know. Get that away from me a little bit. All right. Do we still need to work on his skin? I think so. Let's tinker with this guy's skin a little bit. No, too much. Haven't fully woken up yet. There we go. Yeah, I didn't get as far as I wanted to because I was already thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to be able to get in my closet and organize that stuff a little bit better. Maybe pull out some of my Gasland stuff, work on that today, but that didn't happen. I want to pull more stuff out. And not that my stuff is that disorganized, but it's kind of in a stage that I call you got to move 3 things to get to 1. And I don't want to. There's not a whole lot of clutter. Well, there is right now, as I got stuff all over the place, but I ended up getting some packaging that I think is going to be useful for some other projects. The packaging this thing was packed in came with some real interesting stuff that I'm really leery of throwing away. And I may end up throwing it away anyways, but I looked at it, and the first thing I thought of is, man, I could use this for something else. And hopefully no outages today. Yeah, glitches is more than an outage. Yeah, I obviously didn't have time to look into other streaming services. Like I said, I've been working all freaking day long, so I'll give you my unofficial review of what I did yesterday. I think it's safe to go back over there. Of course, I can't get any closer because there's nothing, it's not full of stuff yet, but if you look back here in the corner, and that you see there is just a reflection of this area here, but this is my display cabinet, and it's really pretty big. It has quite a few, I think on every one of those, it's split in the middle, and on each side I could probably fit, probably 5 armies. So right now I think only one of them has even 2. So we're going to fill that thing out. But that took every bit of 5 hours to build. And from the big Swedish store, of course, which I'm going to say I'm a fan of it. Usually if you can find something that is there, it's of a reasonable price range. Yeah, it's not too bad. We'll do it when the light's in right now, but so I moved the light from back in the corner up to the top, so the illumination's a little different. I got to rearrange this area. I got a couch here that is kind of stuck in this room. It's a kind of a hand-me-down couch that I got from someone. There's nothing wrong with it other than it's like peach colored. So we got this like gray cover. I don't know, we had probably 15 years. And it doesn't really need to be in here, but when I get sent to my room, like when somebody's staying out of town and we're trying to get more people in the house, I'll volunteer to sleep in my room in the couch. Oh darn, leave me here with all my toys, right? But so I don't really want to get rid of it, but it kind of is in a way. So we'll try to rearrange some stuff in here a little bit more. But this is my little home. But yeah, it took probably like 5-6 hours to work on that, and I took the armies that are in there, the ones that were in the travel case. So I've got maybe 6 or 7 armies in there. It could hold a hell of a lot more. So, and I'm still going to leave the other ones in the other places where they're at, but now I got space to expand, and I just want to keep the dust off of stuff, and there's no point in putting things in a box that nobody's going to see. They might as well be out here for, to be used there. But anyway, so in this, I got all kinds of packaging that came with this. And packaging, also known as garbage, right? Came with a bunch of little things like this. And I'm really leery of throwing this stuff away, or I should say recycling it. Throwing it in the recycler. Because this could make dividers or something like that for Gaslands project or something like that. So I got some of these that are like 6 feet long. So IKEA has really interesting packaging. Here's another one. Look at this. It's almost like you could build something out of that. I don't know. I may end up not doing anything with it. But I got a whole bunch of that stuff. And I was pleasant to find. I actually purchased this thing out of town. They didn't have it at the one I went to in Orlando. And my brother came into town, and he was nice enough to go pick it up in the Jacksonville store. And I looked at the label and the country where it was made in, because some things I guess are made in Sweden, and yeah, they do make things in the Great Red Menace, but this is made in Italy, so I thought that was pretty cool. Some things you buy online, you can't tell where they're made until you get them. It's a little too late, but luckily, luckily it was made in a friendly place. But that's pretty much what happened yesterday. I don't have a lot of stuff from from a wargamer standpoint, because I know you guys are like addicts to collect things, and I've been at it for a while, but that doesn't mean I need more. But even with the things that I have, I need a better organization system, because I'll be like, maybe somebody will ask me about, hey, do you know who makes French partisans in 20 millimeter? And I'll be like, oh yeah, I got some of the figures from a long time ago. And if I went to go find them now, I'd make a mess out of this room, just trying to dig things out to try to get to where they're at. And I need to do a better system than that. The problem is these closets that I have, going off on a tangent, but I don't care. This is entertaining. Hopefully you don't think it's horrible. If not, you can sign off. My apologies. Where did my scrap paper go? Yes. We need to pick this up today, because it's a mess. But the closets in this house have a problem. And that is, see if I could use something. Jesus, nothing comes to mind. That's just not going to work. I'm going to have to use I don't want to draw on my stuff. I'll drive myself crazy. I'll take a little piece here and draw on it. Really shouldn't be using this to draw either. I'm breaking all the rules this morning. If you got a room that's like, I'll tilt this up in a second. I'll go ahead and draw the floor plan of this room. All right, so I'm sitting here at my table. I got a bookshelf here. My couch is here. Well, it's longer than that. There's a little table here in the corner. That's probably going to come out, because that's where my lamp was at. Back here, catty corner, is where the display case is. I didn't draw this exactly right. So my closet runs from here to here, and it's the width of the room. The problem is the opening is this big, and there's all this dead space here in the corners. So the problem I have is, if I put something here in this area of the corners, I've got no way to reach it, because I have to leave an empty space about this size in front of it so I can go around the corner and grab it. If I use this front space that's easy to get to from the front, then I've blocked in the corners and I can never use anything with it. So I'm like in an impasse. So what I've been doing is, you put things here in the corner and you just don't get to them. But this is just kind of like a mess. So I think what I may end up doing is do the opposite. Do something where I put things here in the corner, but I put them in at 90 degrees so that I can get to them, and then do that on both sides. And then get to the point where in the center area of the closet, I've got to have a much smaller area, almost like a pillar of like one of things I can use, and that's it. Because right now these corners are just basically, if I put something there like in a bin, just forget it. I can't get to it. I can't get to it without pulling all this shit out in the middle to get this thing out, to then struggle to find it, to then put it back in. It's extremely inefficient. So maybe I'll watch a YouTube and see what people created on it. But I don't want something I gotta throw tons of money on it, you know? I'm not one of these rich people that can spend like $6,000 on a closet or something. It's ridiculous. I mean, I wouldn't even spend $600. There's got to be cheaper solutions, but so anyways, I've got inefficient closet space, and I don't want to just stack things in bins because, it gets annoying. Like, which bin is it in? Oh, I gotta move two to get to. I don't want to do that. I need to be here. So, anyways, that's my closet ramble. But yeah, I should probably look at closet stuff on the internet. But it's not like we get to design the house. it's what's there. And every one of our closets in this house has the same problem. You can't really use the corners. If it was less wall, then yeah, you could get to it. But I got almost 3 feet from the opening of the closet to the end that you just can't get to. So I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm ready for a change in that department. Like I said, it's hard to get to all my stuff, and I don't really have that much stuff. So now you need a grid plan of Mitch's game room. I don't think you want that. You guys have seen most of it. It's just it's a mess sometimes. I'll tell you what. I get in there and I'll bring like 4 things over, and I'll come back and I'm like, damn it, I left it over there because there's just so much clutter. But that's his area. You'd think that he doesn't do anything 2 days of the week. He could at least pick his area up, but oh well. I shouldn't complain. I got somebody to game with every week, so yeah. But it's a little too. I'm not a fan of clutter, and not because I'm a neat freak or anything like that. I wish I was, but I distract easy, and I don't know. I don't know if you guys have ever clean house and gotten rid of a bunch of clutter, and it feels better. Like, you can think. You're not constantly distracted by, hey, look at me over here, and what's that? Oh, that's just another thing you don't need to look at. When you're looking for something and you got to look past so many other things to get to it, you're just worn out from searching. Floor plan of Mitch's place. Yeah. Yeah, I don't like clutter. We had these people we went to go visit a couple of years ago. And they're friends of our friends, and their house is always impeccable. And almost like the house is perpetually on sale. They have really, it's minimalist without being minimalist. There's stuff, but it's there's never stuff laying around. I don't know what their secret is, but I want in on it because I would love to live in a place like that. That's just never an issue. This is very liberating to live in a chaos-free environment. I got a guy I work with at his work area. I don't know how he finds anything. I don't know how he gets anything done. But that's his problem. All right, let's grab this color. What is this? I can't even tell anymore. No numbers or nothing. You're basing tonight. Bring on the base. What do you use for a goop, Dirk? You make your own, you use some commercially available product. This is a little on a bluish hue. And all the stuff that I had laying over here on my turntable, it's over there. I don't want it to collect dust and stuff, so really itching to work on some Gasland stuff, honestly. But it's probably a good thing that I didn't get my act together to be able to do that. That's sending myself into another direction. John Carter, Mitch's Place, where the rutabagas are always in play. Hey, welcome back, Theo. Theo, if you moved to Australia, would your name be right side up, or what? Your name is right side up, right? It's just backwards? No, it's... Oh, dear God, what did you do? Yeah, no, it's upside down. Yeah, it's cool. It's interesting that I can even read it. Like one of those articles you see on the internet. I'm sure all you guys have seen it, where it skips every other word or whatever. Things are jumbled around, and your brain still can read it. It's pretty crazy. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it to game night tomorrow. I don't think I'm going to be able to. I think the workload at work is just too crazy to be able to try to be off by a certain time. So may end up having a bye week. Mondays are busy day. A lot of things happen on Tuesday, so therefore Monday are busy. Do everything the day before, get stuff out. So white glue, sand, epoxy, and an artist filler compound from a local art store. Yeah, it's upside down, but the T is higher. The big T. Yeah, I don't know how you did that. Magic. Internet magic. I like it. It's creative. You can still read your name. The magic of the internet. I need to find a replacement for my Liquitex stuff if it doesn't come back in stock. I don't want to find myself in the middle of an army and then run out of the material and have to switch over at that point. There's a guy on there that did a review on YouTube, really thorough, of basing stuff from different manufacturers. And this was after I already started using Liquitex. And he compares them. And I want to say one of the ones that he does that's really close to it is the Vallejo pumice stone, or pumice stone. So I might have to get some of that. And see, I'd still use the same colors, but I like the same graininess. I don't want to, like, 2 years from now, run out of Liquitex and add a stand to one of my armies I already have that I like the basing, and then it doesn't look consistent enough. It would be disappointing. So there are some websites. I can't be an expert at everything. I start surfing, and the next thing you know, 2 days have gone by. I do like to surf. I do. There's interesting stuff out there. There's all kinds of stuff people sharing. They have their specific interest. And of course, there's a lot of stuff out there that is just, in my opinion, a waste of time and garbage. There's a lot of that. They got a thing that I spend a fair amount of time on Facebook with my hobby and stuff, and they got this thing that comes up on my Facebook feed all the time called Reels, which is kind of like, I guess, their version of TikTok stuff, which, I won't install anything TikTok on my phone because, who owns that? And it's just stupid stuff. They're too short, first of all. I think they cause ADD with something being only 5 seconds long. Who do you think would win, Vikings or Spartans? Geez, I don't know. I'd have to, on a 1-to-1 scale, or, the Vikings bring their army and the Spartans bring their army. I don't know. And then supposedly the Spartans aren't that big of an army. They just had a lot of allies and stuff. So, Vikings or Spartans? I really don't know. I'd have to say maybe I don't know. There's a new book. I don't know if it's out or it's about to come out, by a guy named Mike Cole. And this is a guy who's I read one of his books on Audible, or I had it read to me on Audible, called Legion versus Phalanx. It's a pretty decent book comparing Phalanx troops versus Legion troops. So, you've got a lot of battles where Rome fought somebody else and just kind of like that. And it's a pretty good book. It just came out with one, or is about to come out with one this year, called something along the lines of The Myth of Spartan Superiority or something like that. And I haven't gotten around to getting it. I'm really not sure whether it's out or not. But that may answer your question. You might realize that the Spartans maybe aren't what you thought they were, assuming, you agree with his assessment. Yeah, I don't know. I think that they're very dissimilar probably in their warfare styles, because Vikings tended to do raiding. So, if things got really bad, I would think that the Vikings would break and say F this before the Spartans would. But, other than that, I think if you were on the receiving end of things, you'd probably rather the Spartans come after you than the Vikings, because the Vikings just burn and pillage shit down. I mean, not that the Spartans were, all that nice either, but I'm just saying that, you didn't want to be, if you were a monk in England, you probably would rather the Spartans come after you. But I don't know. Now, in DBA terms, which may have been what you were asking all along, I apologize. In DBA terms, I don't know. It's actually probably a pretty fair match, because spear can stand up to blade really easily. It depends. It's really up to what the blade, really up to the rolls, because the spear is a lot easier to hold in formation because it's not going to advance when it wins. So you're hoping you get into situations where you have a spear line, and if they're all next to each other, they're a 5, and the blade's also a 5. So you want the blade to go in and win, and the one spear unit fall back, and then get in a situation where it's your bound, then you could capitalize on that, and then try to get a double overlap on a blade. So the blade can get themselves into more trouble than the spear can. 100 versus 100. I don't know. I would think that the problem with the Spartans is, I would think that they're going to be used to fighting in a tighter formation, so the Vikings have a mobility advantage, I would think. So the Vikings would fight looser than the Spartans would. It just is just a guess, you know. They actually also, if they have a shield, it's going to weigh less. So I would think that the Vikings would have a mobility advantage. Ever read Delbruck? Is that Hans Delbruck? Why do I understand his name? Maybe from some podcast or whatever. No, I have not. No. Hans Delbruck. It just sounds like Hans goes with that. That sounds like somebody that's been quoted by, what's his name? Dan Carlin on Hardcore History. Hans Delbruck. It's got to be what that is. Sure sounds familiar. Welcome, my favorite Martian. So yeah, now I got one of the hurdles that's over with is worrying about where I'm going to put all this stuff. So I'm pretty much good for a while. I think it's unlikely I'll be able to fill this thing up to the brim. And adding more shelves really isn't an issue, because if you add more shelves, there's not enough space between them. Now, the only thing that's different about it is I can't actually take the glass shelves out, straight out. I'd have to tilt them, so I got to get the stuff off the shelf to move the shelf. But, you know, there's got to be compromises, so, you know, no big deal. I don't think I'm going to run out of space. Because I really don't want to create things and then put them in a box. You know, I want them to be, you know, they're decorations too, you know. They're like models you can play with. All right, maybe a little bit more white, and then we're done with this color. Until we add some stripes or something like that. I don't know if these guys are going to be super decorated, but I think you said that you weren't a big fan of that movie. You just liked the books. The John Carter book. To be honest with you, I'd never even heard of it until the movie came out. Not really my thing. Although, I tell you what, let me tell you a little story about that Victorian time period. A funny story. Yeah, I guess it's a funny story. There's a guy at our show that always puts on games for using Sword of the Flame, always. And they alternated between, you know, Sudan and Afghanistan, depending on what it is. So sometimes it's the Mahdi, sometimes it's not. Different type stuff, all in 28 millimeter. And he pays pretty well, and he puts on these big games on the table that's, I don't know, shit, it's probably 8 by 12. It's pretty big. Multiple people play it. It's a decent game system. It's, you know, again, I don't mind playing. I just don't want to read through the rules because, you know, it's a little too basic in some areas. And anyhow, so I've played a six or seven type of games. Actually, I've never played the Europeans in that game. Never. There's another guy that plays a Sword in Africa. He does Sword of Africa stuff all the time. So you got witch doctors, and it's a fun game. They do a good job of making the terrain look interesting, where it makes you want to play the game. And after one of these games that we did, and I want to say it was an Afghanistan game. I don't know. It's irrelevant whether or not it was a Sudan or it was a Afghanistan environment. But we went to the bar across the street and we were brainstorming. And I'm like, it must have been the Mahdi that we were doing. He was talking about, because he alternates every other one. I'm like, we were kicking back a few beers and I said, Afghanistan's all kinds of rich of things you could do. You could do, because you could do pseudo-historical stuff. You could have Russians get involved in there, along with the English as well. And you could do all kinds of stuff, missionaries that are on their way, try to get out, or, all kinds of different things. And all these, we just kept brainstorming. The next show, I ran into this guy and I said, hey, do you remember what, do you remember what we were talking about? Do you think you're going to do any of that stuff soon? And he didn't even remember the conversation. And it wasn't like it was one-sided, like I was giving all these ideas. We were brainstorming together. Yeah, you could have Russians. Yeah, you could have missionaries and this other stuff. All Victorian time period stuff. And I think that, the Victorian time period is really, would be really interesting if they made more figure options, because that whole 1880 to 1895, I could get into doing wargaming in that period and just do like World War One-ish stuff that just never happened. Where you could have, the French and Germans at each other's throat and the different people that come on to different sides and backstabbing and, kind of like a large skirmish type game thing like that. And I think the possibilities are damn near endless, but I'm not particularly interested in like gaming stuff that's already happened. I'd be doing like what if stuff, What is the scale of the figure you're currently painting? 15 millimeter. 15s. Yeah. But I thought that was funny. We had this brainstorming session. He didn't remember any of it. I guess he had more to drink than I did. I can't remember that. I can't say that I've ever had enough to drink that I don't remember a conversation, but I'm sure it's happened. Maybe I was drinking with someone who had the same amount and they don't remember the conversation either, so they don't bring it up. But, memory loss with alcohol, that's not really my thing. I've really never experienced that. But I do like that Victorian time period. If I got back into naval wargaming, which I don't think I will, that's what I'll do. That's what I would do. I would do the whole 1885 to 1895 period of the ships and stuff. I think they're cool. Ranges are short. You could ram other people. You could always do that, but it's a lot more likely to be in that type of stuff. And there's some wacky designs. I'll be right back and go to the restroom. Maypit. Mapit. Mapit. Welcome. Really appreciate the vids, man. I'm getting back into painting. You know, I am too. The vids are for me. And I don't mean to sound egotistical, but I do this stuff so that I make it difficult to go off on a tangent. Because what I was finding was, you know, I tried listening to music while I was painting. The problem is I got used to painting with someone as a social thing, and I miss that. And it's so I tried listening to music, and I get bored easy. You know, I'm always switching. Like, I don't want to listen to that. I want to listen to something else. So you end up burning 20 or 30 minutes, or I mean, I guess even more, trying to find the perfect thing to listen to. I did books on tape, or I still call it, even though it's books that are, you know, on CD and now even on through Audible. And again, sometimes you'll find a book that's really cool. Like when I was painting those dinosaurs that I showed you yesterday, I was listening to Jurassic Park. That was pretty interesting, but try to listen to something that's kind of the period of what I'm painting, just to kind of get in the habit. And you know, eventually, you know, you get a bad narrator. It's usually that more than the story. A bad narrator, and you get distracted. And then I started watching stuff on YouTube, and YouTube is really the best thing, except occasionally, the problem with YouTube is you have to find something that there's not too much to look at on the screen. Because if there is, you're constantly being distracted and your paint's drying on your brush. So that doesn't work either. So just trying to find a perfect balance. I'm like, well, I could just do my own videos, and if people watch them, if people interact with me, that's awesome. That's why I don't mind, you know, hey, what do you think about this, and going off on tangents, because it keeps me entertained. It keeps me from saying, enough of this painting. I want to go surf and see who does something else, you know. So I appreciate that it helps other people maybe stay on track as well, and we can all get through our projects together. So you grab the Society Ancients quick refs. What are those other pieces of paper you guys put on the board at setup, please? So one of our local players who hasn't been seen of in 2 years, because I think he went wherever Osama bin Laden is. He's been hiding for 2 years since the COVID thing. I don't think he's left it. I don't think he's even left his house. But anyways, he used to put on games recently, and if you go on the Facebook DBA page or the Facebook DBA and Hot page, in the files section, there's these two things you can print out, and you can just mount them on cardboard or what have you. And that's all it is. It's a quick reference to delineate where you can set up and where you can't, just to speed play up. When I first started playing DBA in 2004, I had pieces of cardboard for, you know, obviously it was a different version, so the dimensions of that piece of cardboard was different. But I brought a piece of cardboard out and just put blanks where you couldn't set up, you know, and it just sped play up, because as I was learning, I was taking a long time to play. And this guy said, hey, you know, that's a good idea. Let me elaborate on that. And he added all kinds of setup info and stuff written on there. And that's really all that is an area you can set up. Now, I've heard some people say that it doesn't scale correctly when it gets printed. I can't verify that, because the ones we have, I think were printed up by the actual guy, and we've had them for, God, I think it's been around for 8 years or something like that. So when you go to university, it'll be easier to find people who also want to play tabletop. Maybe. I think that the best way to find people to play this game is through the internet. I'm really disappointed in people's interest in not necessarily even this hobby. I think history. Just people just don't give a shit. We put on a game like at a pub one time, and you know, we just showed up at a pub to play, and DBA, and not a single person came over and said, "Hey, what's that?" So I'm like, my hopes for the human race being interested in anything even moderately historical is really, 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 really low. Um, I mean, so you'll put some people on the TV fighting over a damn ball, and a third of the people will come in and stare at the TV. But you put anything moderately historical that's like cool and stuff. I mean, you don't even be interested in playing the game. Just take a look at it and go, man, that's pretty neat. And nobody comes by. Just need to be just happy with who you have in the hobby. I hate to pee on your parade, but I wish I wasn't. At least in my area, that isn't the case. So, if I would have seen something like this as a freaking kid, anything, even, it doesn't matter what the period is. Just like, you can participate in history. Yeah, man, bring that shit on. Because I get it that some people aren't going to be creative. Some people don't want to paint. Some people don't have it in them, I think that just comes out whether or not you're a combination of someone who's creative and someone who's creative and also someone who's interested in history. I think that just because you're interested in history doesn't mean you're going to be a painter. The same way that like some people would be interested in playing a war game, but they won't want to paint any of this stuff. Same thing with me. I don't mind eating a meal, but I'm sure as hell not going to go to class and figure out how to cook it. It's just not my thing, I lived many years alone and I never starved, but I never cooked. You do the math. Oh, here we go. Lots of things. Good morning, Tony. I have a DBA question. Why does the defender move first? Seems to me that invader, the aggressor, should move first. I don't know. You'll have to ask Phil. I think there's a lot of things in the game that benefit the defender too much. I'll tell you this. I'll say 3.0 is better than 2.2 in that respect. Because in 2.2, the defender got to pick exactly what terrain he wanted and put it exactly where he wanted. And then the attacker only had a 50-50 chance of getting to come in on the board edge that they wanted to. And then the defender set up first. Then the attacker set up. And then the attacker was going to go first, but the defender got to switch two elements. So they got to alternate two. It was too powerful for the defender. And I can tell you because I wanted to be the defender every time. So I think 3.0 is better, but I still think it favors the defender. I think it favors the defender too much. So I don't know. They didn't ask me. If I ever make my own set of rules, it won't be that way. I can tell you that already. Because what ends up happening is armies that tend to attack other nations tend to have a high aggression. The guys that everybody wants to build, the guys you hear about, like, oh, I want to build, the Mongols or, the guys that are always on the attack. I mean, nobody's like, man, I can't wait to build an army of pacifists that's sitting on their mountain and don't do anything, right? You want to build armies of people that are aggressive and take things over because that's what history is written about. So you can participate in history. And all of those armies have a high aggression, have a 3 or 4 aggression. So what happens is they never pick their battlefield. And they're usually fighting in terrain that their army, if it's not an army that's very balanced, can't deal with really well. And the defender gets to go first. It's just a little too one-sided type thing. So, I think I would prefer doing something that would involve, the defender sets up terrain to some degree, and then the attacker gets to move some of their stuff, some of the terrain, or possibly eliminate. Like, for instance, they may get a chance to, and I think it should be random, I think this is not play tested at all, so I'm just shooting from the hip here. But something along the lines of they could take 2 pieces of terrain and move it, or eliminate 1. Something like that. I guess you could probably attack one, but I don't know too many instances that I've come across where you're playing a defensive army against one that has a high aggression, and the high aggression is always attacking, and the defender puts out no terrain and the attacker wants terrain. So there's not too many armies that have either a lot of skirmishers or light horse that want more terrain than the defender wants. So it's probably moving 2 pieces or eliminating 1 type of thing. And that's just they've just got to play test the hell out of that. But again, I don't really want to get into house rules, because when you're playing a set of rules and you play a bunch of house rules, then you get used to them. You're invariably going to like them more than the other rules. So then when you play with other people at a convention or something like that, you got to go back to playing them the old way, and you feel like you're getting screwed. So I don't want a bad taste in your mouth type of thing, So, in DBX, the defender moves first because the attacker deploys second and can get matchups. The defender then has a chance to reorganize. Works better in DBM or DBMM rather than DBA. DBMM has all kinds of really cool things in it that those of us that play the smaller scale game are not worthy. There's all kinds of juicy stuff, like what type of day did it rain, all kinds of things that could make your battle day go sideways, which our group actually enjoys, because both sides are suffering from it. It's something to laugh about, It's different if it just affected one guy and you got to deal with it, and then the other guy doesn't have to. But it's better in 3.0 than in 2.2 for sure. For sure. And 2.2 created things that were like just intrinsically stupid. Like, I know one person in particular. I was playing him in, I want to call it the national tournament, even though there really wasn't one, but say the big one, the tournament of all tournaments at the end of the year. And they had one army that they played the same way, when it was an army that had a pretty low aggression, so they almost always got terrain. And they always set up, let's see if we can find a square. I really need to find my papers around here somewhere. If this is your board that's square, he would set up with a crossroads and a woods near the crossroads. And that was some kind of plan they had, that he always would set up the same. So it's just stupid. It's not challenging. It's not fun. I wouldn't want to do that. Always set up the same damn way, And there was a lot of terrains you could set up however you want. You could have 5 pieces. There'd be 1 piece of bed going there, one in the center, one there. So it looks like the pips on a 5. It's just dumb to have the same thing over and over again. So I think that the new terrain is definitely better. Could it be better than that? Probably. But, I think that it's definitely an improvement how it used to be. And a lot of these people, and I really don't know how much DVA was play tested. I'm sure it was play tested quite a bit, but a lot of these rules sometimes get put in, and the people don't play test the rules. And we play a lot more than most people, and we play to try to break them. And then if there's broken, then it needs to be fixed, so you can't abuse things. Was it last week where there was a lot of littoral landings that are just stupid stuff? I mean, it's okay, like, play balance wise, but like I wouldn't put littoral landings in a game. I do flank marches and not littoral landings. I think littoral landings are okay for a play balance. They're interesting from a standpoint that they create a dialogue. Dialogue, the right word? They create an interaction on a game board that instead of it being these guys here and these guys here and going at them, there could be another flank. So it can be asymmetrical to some degree. And that makes it an interesting tactical situation. But as far as something realistic or anything like that, yeah, it's just in my opinion, and well, in our opinions of our game group, it's just silly. But does it break the game? No. It's just what it is, you know. Several competitions, fixed terrain, which can really make you think. One thing I'm going to do at some point in the future, we're going to play it like we do Field of Glory. And in Field of Glory, when you do match pairs, is you take one army versus another one. Okay, so say you do Carthaginians and Romans, and the terrain is a certain way, and you guys will switch sides, but the terrain stays the same. I think we'll do that. We'll do some of those series where it's people play both sides, and it can be really unbalanced, whoever it is, the scenario. But then you could roll randomly for what the terrain is, but that's what it is for both games. So, threat zones extending through elements is another thing that drives me crazy. If the elements cannot make contact due to a third element's presence, there is no threat to begin with. So it never drove me crazy, but I justified why it's that way. So the way I justified it is you've got all these units, and when they get within this proximity of someone else, they start to not listen to your commands as the king or the general of the army. So they start getting into what I call analysis paralysis. You know, because it's like 1,000 guys there, and you want them to do something, and they start not behaving to what you're doing. So I personally like it, but I have justified in my head what it's trying to represent, because if you look at it on the surface, it does look stupid, especially when you've played with it not being the case that way. But just think of it as it just takes more time to redirect their attention somewhere else. The other thing about a bound is, you roll 5 pips, the other guy rolls 1. So you do 5 things, and then the other guy gets to do 1 thing. And you're like, well, that's not fair. They're moving 5 times faster than my one guy is. But if you look at it from the standpoint is, it's not that your guys can't move that fast. It's that the other guy is going to be able to react that much quicker because of the exchange of time between both of them. So if you roll a 1, it's not that your guys don't react quickly enough. It's that the other guys react. It's that much less time before they have. Just think of it like opportunity fire. It's like a pip opportunity fire. They get to react that much quicker. It's like, you do one thing and then the other guys are right back on the ball again, and it's that time for their turn again. So, at least that's how I've been able to justify it. I don't have a problem with that kind of stuff, because a lot of this stuff is just abstracted in, which is really what was really difficult for me to pick up with the DBA rules, because I'm not used to playing abstract games at all. I mean, I want to measure individual rounds of ammunition, millimeters of armor, and all that kind of anal retentive stuff that makes you not be able to finish a game. So just to be able to abstract some of that thing out is actually liberating to some degree. I know you recommend Romans as a starting army. I like them. Are they a good choice to interchange elements with other armies? I'm a lazy painter, want to save money too. Medievals. Medievals is definitely the way to go for that. If it's a command issue, then it sounds like it should cost 2 pips instead of locking unit down. Well, they didn't ask me what my opinion was. So, that's not even close to my biggest issue with DBA. My biggest issue with DBA, and I'm not buying people that tell me that it can't be solved. Some people are like, well, this can't be solved, is the most stupid thing about the game that makes me feel like I'm not playing a real war game at all. And that's that you can't combat like this, that you can't combat like this, that you have to combat like this and only like this. And it's just dumb as shit. So if you ever see me come up with a set of rules, it won't have that. Now, if you hit like this, you know, like if you're sitting here defensively and some guy hits you, you know, say you're this guy, and somebody comes in and hits you like that, and when it's your turn, you want to spend a pip to align with the guy and keep him from doing other creepy things. Because once you hit like this, you should be able to move more in alignment with the unit. You know what I mean? But the whole fact that it has to be symmetrical like this is okay for a game, but I don't walk away feeling like I moved real units. It's just, I want a game that spends less time trying to figure out how I can legally contact, because that just uses up too much time. Successors are really good. Yeah, I like successor armies. But the problem with successor armies is you don't have the full plethora of troop types. Well, you don't in medieval either, because you generally don't have elephants. But successors aren't going to have shooters, or very many of them at all. Under WRG used to compare the amount of light troops each army, determine who was scouted, added advantages and penalties on deployment. Yeah. I'd like to see a thing with whoever has more light horse and Saloy, it affects their aggression number. And I'd like a split between what type of terrain you're in and who's the actual defender on the battlefield. Like, for instance, Hannibal in Italy, he was the defender all the time. And he was in foreign land. And technically he would have a high aggression because he was on the offense. So, anyhow. But, you know, ultimately, you know, the game is whatever the author wants the game to be, as it should be. You know, it's his game. You know, whether you choose to play it the way he does, well, that's up to you, you know. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that. My biggest frustration with the game is for those of us that are trying to teach other folks is some of us have been at this for like 20 years and don't necessarily consider themselves to be uneducated or unintelligent. And we get shit wrong all the time, constantly. And we're going to continue getting shit wrong all the time because of not the wording, but how the rules are organized. And it's a pain in the ass for those of us that are doing this for free. Really, my only motivation is to stay motivated in playing the game, and that it doesn't die, because I don't want all the stuff, all the hours and hours of effort that I've done to be like, well, nobody plays that anymore. You might as well just sell them on eBay, which, you know, I wouldn't sell on eBay. They'd just be, you know, sitting in a case and not doing anything with it. So that's really my only motivation. It's not monetary. It's just community. Would that be the correct term? I don't know. But that's what my motivation is. But it's not, I used to think that it was the way the rules were. Yes, some sentences are way in the realm of run-on sentences that you have to dissect. But for the most part, it's that I want to find out about one aspect about, you know, about one unit, and it's not in the movement section. It's maybe in the description of what the unit thing is, instead of, because nothing's ever repeated, you know, and everything movement related should be in the movement section. Now, if you want to talk about it earlier, then you need to talk about it again in the movement section. That's the way things are normally written. So, for some empires like Rome, I'd love to see them being able to choose their theater of operation. Yep, there you go. Now, my first thing to say is what army I suggest you playing is what are you? That's the first thing. I mean, unless you don't like who you are. But for in my case, I built feudal Spanish first. I could have done medieval Spanish, I guess I could have done ancient Spanish, although that's a little too far away from my thing. But that's what I suggest is, do your heritage, do what your background is. Or, do what you want. It's not that I'm a big fan of the Roman period. I just think that that's just a classic matchup as the Carthaginians and the Romans. Everybody knows about them. I knew about them even before I was interested in ancient warfare. Greeks are good too. The problem with Greeks is a lot of their armies are almost the same. So the Romans and the Carthaginians at least are significantly different. But they had that little, they had that poll they did a couple months back where they polled what the most common armies, and apparently the most common army of all was Gauls. Lots of people had Gauls. It would never occur to me to build Gauls. Well, first of all, people around me have plenty of Gauls, so there's no reason for me to, but they're incomplete. They got chariots, they got warband, and they got a skirmisher or two, so that's not very interesting as far as I'm concerned, as far as different troop types. Some people have commented, well, they paint up quick. Well, depends how you paint them. I bet if I painted a Gaul army, it would not be quick. I have a way of making things take forever when they don't need to, but that's just my own anal retentive nature. I'm just going to have to live with that the rest of my life. It's the cross I have to bear. But yeah, Gauls were number one, the most popular army. So I think that they're a hard army to learn how to play the game with because they're deficient in a lot of stuff. So if you bring them to a tournament, I mean, to be honest, we don't do very many opens anymore. That's all we used to do was, before I got involved, was, well, we'd have an opener. We'd have a theme, but now if we do an open, it's 1 out of every 7 games. So the impact on an open army, is less than before. And I think also DBA 3.0 is there's many more viable armies than there have been in like 2.2. In 2.2 there was people that would bring perceived power armies, and that type of stuff. So all right, we're going to call this dude done. We want to go back and tinker with him a little bit. We can, but there's enough of him done already. All right, let's do another one-off figure. I don't feel like doing 3 guys in a row that all look the same. Who do we got here? Oh, this guy. Another guy that's working for the weekend with a headband. All right, let's paint this guy up. Loverboy. Of you paint to sell, everyone seems to want Gauls. All that tartan. I don't know. I don't have any Gaul ancestors that I know of. So I tend to gravitate towards armies that look cooler. So if there's Army A and there's Army B and one's got cooler army, that's who I want to build because they're cooler. Makes sense, right? So I'm not a Roman phobe, whatever. I'm not a pro-Roman person, but I'll be honest with you. In my opinion, I think the Romans are more interesting from that aspect than almost everyone they ever fought. That doesn't, except Pyrrhus. Pyrrhus is freaking awesome. Okay, forget him. I think the Romans are more interested than the problem with Carthage. The problem with Carthage is they're too much of a mishmash of things. It's like, who are the Carthaginians? I don't know, like this one stand, a spear, and one cavalry unit. Everybody else is like a mishmash of things, which I guess is okay. But Seleucids are pretty freaking cool too. But, you know. And I think a lot of people think that way. That doesn't mean I wouldn't paint the other side. I'm just saying that, you know, we only have a certain amount of things we can build. Who are you going to build? The guys that look cool. That's why I think World War II Germans are so popular. Because let's face it, they look cool. They had cool equipment. They had cool uniforms. Well, they were involved in all theaters, so it makes sense to build them because, you know, everybody's just about going to fight them at some point. So if you're doing World War II, it makes sense to do World War II Germans. But it's not the people out there being like, oh, I want to be a white supremacist. Let me build a German army. Well, there may be, but I've never encountered that in my wargaming. It's just that they were, you know, cool looking. That's all. As Phil said, pick an army you can love when it loses. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. Yeah. My Ottomans. Those poor bastards. And the Hungarians, the new Ottomans, they're off to a terrible start. That's one of the reasons I don't like to play. I don't like to collect American stuff. Well, first of all, I'm already American, so there goes that role play aspect of it, right? And then, you know, they don't have enough variety of things, you know. We got, for the most part, one variety of tank, one type of paint scheme, one, you know, it's not exciting, you know. Carthage is popular partially because it operates as a start to painting other armies. I think Carthage is popular because a lot of people that are uninformed think that it's a really good army because of Hannibal. And Hannibal made the army. The army didn't make Hannibal. I mean, before I started Ancient Wargaming, I'll admit, I played a game. The first Ancient game I played was a big battle Command and Colors game with miniatures, and I wanted to be the Carthaginians because I thought they were cooler. Well, I didn't know anything about the history. Well, I did, but you know what I mean, the stuff you learn in freaking school. So nothing. Not until you start doing your own knowledge, you know, you can do that. Mitch's Babylonians. Yeah, they don't do really well, do they? Yeah, they don't do really well. Well, how many shooters they got? 7? I don't think he does. The B version army, I don't think he does really well with that army either. And that has a low aggression. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't roll as well with shooty armies as I do. My shooty armies do really well. Well, of course I don't have 7. By my Burgundians, I think I have 6. And they're my biggest winning army is the Burgundians. And man, I swear they've had to earn every single one of their wins. They've been close. They're not like stomp fests. They've been close, but man, you got to really play keep away all the time. Those games tend to run long. Yeah, my Burgundians, between both Burgundians, the early and the late. My early are 6-0, and my late are 6-3. So that's 12-3 with that army, with that two versions of the army. That's definitely my winningest army that I have. But now I get to the point where I don't even want to use them anymore because I don't want to. Well, first of all, I don't want the games to take a freaking day to play, and I don't want the record to get worse. I'll admit, I don't want the record to get tarnished. But I do like shooty armies. But I don't want every army to be the same. Otherwise, there's no incentive to build one, to build more. All right, let's get the flesh parts of this guy, the fleshy bits of this guy. Yeah, Sunday morning, the numbers are always busier than Saturday morning. I guess you guys finished your honeydew lists. I was thinking about going to the car show today. I don't think I'm going to. That can wait. I'll go when it's cooler. Although, what is it right now? Maybe 70 degrees? 66? What? No, there's no way it's that cool. Yeah, we're not doing that. I'm not cutting off my feed here. Not when it's rolling well. Ah, new color. Who is it? Joe, there he is. Good morning. Paint, paint, paint. That's right. A new color because I can just see your little icon as a magenta color. Whatever that means. Do you get to pick that or you just get randomly assigned that? Magenta, that's a good color for like Persians or Middle Eastern type. It's early for you. You're usually not up this early, I think. Well, I started late, so. I was up too late watching a movie that I had not seen, but I already knew what the plot was. Somebody had spoiled the movie for me. And I watched it anyway, so. One of those movies that I'd never watch again. People always say, hey, what movie do you have that you've seen more than 10 times or something like that? Nobody talks about the movies you'd never watch again. Mornings are better for us in the UK. Watching you live at 2 a.m. UK time can be a bit challenging. Fortunately, I'm retired, so it isn't much of a factor. Yes, but why are Sunday mornings better than Saturday mornings? Is there less to do? Are things closed there? Are you guys still in a lockdown? I don't know, probably. Is Australia still in lockdown? Buddy Greg was telling me, I don't know, but it seems like a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, they were going to be shut down for a week, and they end up being continually shut down. So this is the 5th figure, and I need to do 14, so they paint quick. This isn't really what I want to be working on right now, but I know if I don't do these guys now, I'm never going to come back to them. And it's 2 solid hordes, and it's a foothold for other Book 1 armies that I may do. I've got Assyrians to do, and I'm pretty sure that they can have a couple of hordes in them, and it would be the same figures, so I already have a 1/6 of that army done. I haven't even started on them, you know, so got to think like that. But I am concerned about the supply of the Liquitech stuff. I can't tell whether people are just out of it, which would be okay, or they just discontinued it. They're not going to make it again, which is not okay. So I need to look for ulterior methods of do it. Sydney becomes free in days, apparently. Wow. I don't know how people are dealing with that. See, I haven't missed a day at work. So if you told me I can't do whatever I want while I'm not at work, and oh yeah, by the way, you have just the same amount of work, if not more, because we're busy as shit. Yeah, it's like all of the bad and none of the good. I don't know. Can we go back to 2019 or the 80s? Somebody was telling me a couple of weeks ago. They said, "Well, basically what we're going through is we're going through the 1970s with supply things and stuff like that." And that was like the first good news that I heard. It's like, that's awesome, because the freaking 80s are next, and that means the music will get better. And he laughed. Pretty much back to normal in the UK. Awesome. That's excellent news. Excellent. Still putting my lead pile into parts and bins of so much Renaissance. I'm doing Dragon Rampant, human army of late Germans, Italians, French, and Swiss. I looked at the Lion Rampant rules. I watched a couple of reviews about a month ago, and YouTube saves me so much money, because I'll be like, hey, I wonder what these rules are like. So just watch somebody's review of it, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm good now. It's not that I'm not opposed to doing other stuff. I just realized that I have a limited amount of time I can spend on this. And getting involved in other things isn't going to help that. But I did look into doing some fantasy in 15s. I don't want to do 28s. I don't have time to paint 28s. I don't have time to paint 28s and spend. Boy, this looks like a Hindu looking dude. Look at this guy. I just mean like style of figure. I mean, obviously skin tone, yeah, we're there too, but all right, let's lighten this guy up. I like the activation system that those games have. That press your luck thing. I think our group would like them as well. I don't know, does playing games that have difficult decision-making scenarios help you in your real life? I think it does. I think there's a lot of people, like at work, for instance, that just don't know how to make a decision. And I think that even though it's different, the fact that you need to weigh your pros and your cons semi-quickly helps you in making decisions. There's a whole lot of people that just don't make decisions and have never had to make them before. And it's almost like brain atrophy. There's a whole lot of that going on. I've been double vaccinated already and my wife has had her third. Yeah, but that's irrelevant to the lockdown. Because I'm not opposed to any of that stuff. I mean, I've got all my vaccines from when I was a kid and stuff, and I'm not allowed to comment on the new one. I'm not saying one way or the other, but I'm not opposed to them. I understand why other people may be opposed to them, but I'm not opposed to them. But I don't want to do this and do that and do the other thing. Oh, yeah, but okay, all right, I did all that. Well, that's still not enough. You need to now do this, that, and the other thing. But anyhow, yes, I'm jibber jabbered. Doctor is fun and flexible. DBA is a feel of linear battle. DR. Dragon Rampant. Okay, it's fun and flexible. DBA has a feel of a linear battle. I think DBA needs small figures and big bases to look right, though. Always use fantasy rules for historical. Oathmark with Dark Ages. Yeah. Okay. Where are we here? Let's get some of this. I think the game industry hasn't been it's one of the few things, I don't know. I don't really have my pulse on the whole thing, but it seems to me from the outside that the game industry hasn't been affected by this, what's happened in the last couple of years, as much as most other things. I think it's actually probably given it new life. Because of, people having to stay at home and stuff like that. I think. Maybe not, like there's some things, for instance, that were already on the way down, and this is just like sped up the process. In my opinion, movie theaters, I've no interest in going to a movie theater. Not for any other reason other than it's inconvenient and expensive, and you can just watch at home. You go to the movie theater and it's like, man, I really got to pee. Well, I better hold it because I'll miss part of the movie. It's just inconvenient, stuff like that. Shopping malls. I think shopping malls were already on their way out. This just kind of gave them a kick in the pants. They're not out completely, but, they took, if everything took a step back, those couple things took 2 or 3 steps back. Postage. Yeah, postage is brutal. And postage will never come back. my problem with the whole thing is it's like, you this created issues that, okay, so there's an issue now, but can we get back to how things were before? And some things never will. Just like air travel after 9/11, it'll never go back to how it was before. And I kind of have a problem with that. I have a problem with, things not, getting back to how things were just because people want to, and there's some things that don't have to go back to normal. I'm just saying, you'll never be able to drop off your loved ones at the gate to go on an airplane ever again. You kill every terrorist in the universe, and you're just never going to be able to because there's just too much litigation. Like, well, what if something were to happen? Yeah, you're right. Let's not put that back in. So that's one right you'll never get back. So, and one here and one there isn't a big deal, but you start summing them up, and all of a sudden you're not living in a world that you grew up in. So I don't have a problem with, well, we got to do this for now. The problem is the for now is now the for always, and I got a problem with that. Now, am I going to take to the streets? No, but I'm going to tell you that I got a problem with it. I'm too busy at work. I got too many things to paint to cause trouble. It's been a pain. I'm not taking off the belts at airports, have intrusive cameras and compulsory jabs to go abroad. Yeah. And if you do have to take off your belt, right? Take it off before it's your frickin' turn, dude. Don't be the guy that holds up the frickin' line. Don't be that guy. Yeah, I'm not worried about terrorism at all. Bring figures with you every time. Those TSA guys will be entertained. I'm flown a long time, and I'm not looking forward to. Now, what I understand is, now you can't drink on a plane. So, I guess I got to get lit before I get on a flight now. And by lit, I mean heavily buzzed. I don't mean, I don't like the steel bird, man. Forget the terrorist. I don't care about the steel bird. Yeah, it's a pain to deal with anybody anymore, You go to any store, they don't have things. I mean, even before this happened, they don't have things. The people work there don't want to find stuff for you. They don't care. So screw it. I'll buy it on Amazon. I don't have to deal with your ass. Or don't have to go to 4 different stores looking for things. So they kind of did it to themselves. I don't know. I don't think we're getting the full story. All you hear about is like, hey, nobody wants to work anymore. But then you go to a restaurant and you can't get in there because there's too many people. It's like, where's all this money coming from? If nobody wants to work, how do they have the money to go to restaurants? Smoke and mirrors. Oh, man. And there's just all kinds of inconsistencies. It's the inconsistencies that drive me freaking crazy. So. I'm also not waiting outside in line to get into a store because of capacity. I just won't go in the store. I'm like, don't need to go in there. Wargaming keeps you sharp. I think so. Keeps you thinking. You You got to use the brain, you know. That's why I'm not a fan of television. I think video games are so much better than television because at least you're making decisions. Television's like, whether you watch it or not, the show ends the same damn way. You know, the same thing happens whether you watch it or not. And I do like to think. I may not like to think about, you know, what I should be thinking of, but I'm always thinking. That's why one of the funnest things, at least for me, when I'm playing one of these games online, is to tell you guys what I'm thinking through, because it's fun. And I'm not like, well, I don't want Mitch to find out what I'm thinking. I don't give a shit. I'm not trying to outsmart him. You know, it's just, you know, after you've played almost 1,000 games against somebody, it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. It's just fun to talk out loud and what's going through, you know. All right. Get this little bit of the paint that sticks to the end of the brush, but it's an easy fix. Just a little bit of this just takes it off. This stuff works really well for, get rid of that. I think I had a castle or something that I had stuck on that. I was using this as a holder. This stuff works pretty well to get the paint off the brush. It pretty much gets rid of it. Now, as far as reshaping it, you know, these cheap ass brushes, when they're done for, they're done for. You know, once they get that 90-degree turn in them, it's over. This one's actually held out pretty well. And I don't know whether some of that is because I'm applying pressure on here when I'm mixing. I try not to do too much pressure, but, you know, I'm not going to get one brush to mix and then put that one away, rinse it, put this one to paint. That's too much. You know, the brushes are, my time is worth something too. So, except for some sporting events, haven't watched TV for decades now. Don't miss it at all. You're not missing anything. I don't watch sporting events, so, you know, I could definitely deal with it without it. Watched John Carter of Mars with a girlfriend the other night. Very silly but fun. I tried watching it the second time with my daughter. We made it to about 12 minutes and we're like, nah, we're not really enjoying this. Let's move on. There's just too many things to, if you are going to watch that, there's no reason to sit through something that you're not enjoying. Unless it's like a homework assignment or something like that, you got to complete. Not much sense in doing that. What's the temp up to? I'm going to have to mow today, aren't I? What's the temp up to? I don't believe it's 66. You loved Young Winston recently, especially the charge at Umdurman. I don't think they have that thing here. I don't think they have Young Winston. Didn't they finally stop, didn't they knock down a statue or something of him, like, what, 2 years ago when they had that whole knocking down every statue that I'm upset with because I didn't get spanked as a child? a couple years ago. Was he a target of one of those things as well? Oh, this guy's not a perfect example of our values these days, so we got to destroy everything he's known for. Well, it's a good thing he was around when he was around, or things would be different. This guy's not a perfect example of our values these days, but somehow the rich and famous nowadays are. It's just a statue, man. It doesn't mean you got to worship them. Now, why is that hidden? Well, we're showing that. You can use that word here. Let's see. They did it because he's a Nazi now. Right. Along with half the people you know, including the ones from overseas, same-sex partners. Yeah, well, the world's on its head. You know, what else is new? Speaking of Nazis, I got in trouble for something I posted like 3 years ago. Like a year ago, I got in trouble for something I posted like 3 years ago. It took them 2 years to find it. And it's this great meme. I love it. Whoever came up with it was freaking brilliant. And I'll describe it to you. You guys have probably already seen it. It's this black and white photo of Churchill and, and the mustached guy, right? I'm not afraid of saying his name. People are sensitive. The mustached guy that say got what he deserved, but that's not true. He deserved more than that. But anyhow, Churchill's doing his little V thing, and the other guy is doing his salute, and underneath it says "Scissors beats paper." It's brilliant, right? Whoever came up with it, they deserve a prize. They deserve a prize named after them. And yeah, Facebook put me on a 30-day ban for that, or something. Like, okay. Screw you. That's just because you show a picture of that mustache bastard doesn't mean we agree with him. But yet you can even do memes of the other mustache bastard and it's okay. Well, I got news for you. One's just as bad as the other. Schickel Gruber. Yeah. Nobody likes him. Nobody freaking likes that guy. He's a dickhead. He was a dickhead before he even started the war. His troops are dressed fancy, but that's it. That's where I draw the line, Terrible painter. Yeah. Have I seen any of his artwork? I don't know. Was he kind of like a watercolory guy? I don't know. I bet he's a better painter than some painters that are out there. I'm just saying. Maybe he should have just stuck to painting. Adolfo, yeah. Yeah, now you can't put anything of him up. Which I get, but you shouldn't be able to put any Stalin stuff either. I'm just saying, I'm just saying, I just finished reading on Audible, a book on Patton, the Killing Patton book, which I think is a good book, except that I didn't care for O'Reilly's narration of it. He's just needs to stick to news or whatever else he does. He does not need to narrate books. His meter and everything is off. I think I could do a better job. That's not saying a whole lot, but I'm sure I could do a better job with the inflection and, inflection, whatever. Maybe I wouldn't do a better job, but my meter would be better than his. But the book is interesting, and yeah, I came off really liking the guy. I mean, yeah, they got their problems. Nobody's perfect. We're not perfect. But he didn't want to deal with the commies, so I got to like him for that. This is not a commie-friendly zone. Doesn't mean we like the other guys either. They're the same freaking people. They're just the same side of two different coins, or different side of the same coin. I don't know. Nobody's ever said it's the same side of two different coins, but I don't know. Potatoes, not dictators. Yep. Not dictators. Yep. Is there an army you guys wouldn't paint because, or an army you guys wouldn't play because of who they are? I'd play anybody. As a matter of fact, I love playing Eastern Front stuff. I love playing World War II Eastern Front because, you know, bad guy's gonna die no matter what happens. Bad folks gonna die. I know, they're just soldiers, whatever. Just generalize it. Bad folks are gonna die. Which bad guy you want to be? I'm American. You know, we break everything down to who's the good guy in the situation, right? Except from the cowboy movies. Well, can't say I've watched very many cowboy movies. Anything broken down in simple terms. I'd probably give this stage. I spend more time than anybody I can think of doing this, and I probably shouldn't, but it's enjoyable building a little skin levels up. This guy's gonna end up being kind of dark. I mean, he's a freaking half-naked dude running around in the desert. You know, no suntan, no sun protection. You're gonna turn into a leathery piece of thing. World War II Japanese because it's personal. You don't play World War II Japanese. I don't like the Pacific Theater because it's just not, I don't find it very interesting. And that's not to downplay any veterans that did any fighting there. It just doesn't appeal to me. You skip from colonial to science fiction. Well, that's fair enough. I don't care for modern warfare, too destructive, too much olive drab. Yeah, I'm with you on that. When I paint, I like to listen to thunderstorms and rain on the headphones. I hate thunder. I hate lightning. I eat white noise because all those tank rounds I fired while in the army made my ears ring. Oh, man. Were you on Chieftains or Challengers? I had back when we did, what was it? What's the modern one? Not Command Decision, or what was the other one? the modern version of command decision. I had some Brits. And I love the Chieftains. Chieftains very unique looking tank, and I mean that in a good way. I think they're a good looking tank, especially that camo scheme they have with the dark green and the black, almost like the Normandy 44 stuff. Good looking vehicle. Tinnitus. Definitely good to have something to tune out. You're scared of heraldry. Oh man, I'm inspired by heraldry. Although I'll be honest with you, I don't like the heraldry that's like, the cadet branches of things, where it's like you have this beautiful artwork that you do, and it's like, oh, by the way, he's not the guy who has that heraldry yet, so let's put this line across it and put these hash marks on it. I'm like, oh man, I just ruined my beautiful heraldry. I love heraldry. My favorite is Eastern Front Soviets. You don't care if you lose or win, just attack. They're fun as hell to play, man. They really are fun as hell to play. I think a guy got arrested in Winchester, UK a while back for repeating a Churchill speech in public. What? That's just ridiculous. If I play World War II, you should play a board game. Okay. Jeepers, U.S. Army, M4A3. I thought you were in the UK. Okay. M4, M48A5s, and M60A3s. Okay, yeah, you're old. Not necessarily. 15 years older than me, maybe. M48A3s, A5s. I don't know what the A5 modification is. I don't remember. Patents. Is he the only one that had two different tanks named after the same person? Because M47s were Patents too. What were the M46s called? They may have been Patents as well. M47s, also known as the King Tigers in Battle of the Bulge. That's an interesting tank. That's an interesting looking tank. I think that's the tank that Schwarzenegger drove in the Austrian army, M47s. Or he has one or something like that. He bought one. I don't like to talk about him anymore ever since I lose respect for people who start cheating on their wives and stuff like that. Banging the maid. I don't want to hear about stuff like that, man. I don't want to talk about you if you can't behave. I think he's got an M47, Austrian army. The Turks got M47s. Obviously, the Austrians did as well. I'm not sure who else got them. Interesting looking tank. If I was going to do a Cold War, World War III game, I think an interesting period would be late 50s, early 60s. So you could do heavy tanks. You could have those M103s. I think that's what they are. They had the 120s. They didn't make very many of them, but that would be cool. That way you could have different variations of it. I think that might be interesting. If I had all the time in the world, Okay. And 48A5 had the 105. Okay, so before that, they had the 90. The 90 with that weird muzzle blast deflector to the sides. It's not weird because it's to the sides, but the front of it is like so solid, and then there's the hole in it, so the baffle goes out that far past. It's an interesting tank. Yeah. No hull machine gun. What was the last tank with a hull machine gun? A Pershing? Last U.S. tank with a hull machine gun? I don't think the Walker Bulldogs had a hull machine gun. Yeah, I got to talk about all this stuff or I'm going to forget. Wargaming's always been about learning about real things for me. So, you know, you're playing a game, but you're finding it, you learn about this stupid trivia that, you know, maybe someday you'll be able to reuse, but at least it's things that really happened. Survey mold lines, file or knife. So I haven't built plastic models in a long time until I started building a couple of them last year. And M47 has a whole machine gun. Okay, cool. But, and you may already know this, I may be talking to people that don't know anything, but this is something super cool I learned. I feel it's my duty to pass this on because it is so awesome and it's right there in front of your face that it would never even have occurred to me that anybody would know this. Is there anywhere I can find a mold line to show you this in action? No. Is there one here? Okay, there's a tiny mold line on here. So, I never use files because I never had files, okay? But if you're doing plastic models, mold lines on metal stuff, I've always used a knife. I've never used a file because the files usually can't get too small in those small areas. But on plastic models, I would always scrape the mold like this, but you create a flat spot. Well, somebody on some thing I was watching, one of these genius people that build models, said, if you take the mold line, use this side of the knife, the back side, and it's not as harsh to cut to take the mold line off. And I'm like, it's right there. Who would have known? You could use the back side of the knife to take off, you know, little bits of the mold line. Let's see. Well, this is kind of rubbery, so it's not going to work really well. But, you know, you create a flat spot when you scrape like this. But this just takes a little bit of it off. Had to pass that on. Some of you guys already know that. Maybe you'd be like, well, I'll be damned. You know, I think it's the coolest thing. So, I hate taking mold lines off. I don't mind it so much on plastic. I hate it on metal. I think it's not my responsibility. I think the person who makes the miniature should have already done it for me. I know, it's just living in fantasy land, but I don't like priming them. I certainly don't like to clean the figures up, but yeah, I was watching some plastic video guy and that did that, and I'm like, son of a, that's right there the whole time. Who'd have thunk it? I thought you were in the UK, Michael, because you said you just survived lockdown. But you just must be just somewhere else in the US, but yeah, that's why I said chieftains or challengers. Combined Arms. Combined Arms was the name of the rules. And I couldn't find my copy of it the other day. I was looking for it. I still have my original Command Decision that I probably bought in '87 or something like that. And I got the Barbarossa 25, which was a campaign game where you could play supposedly the invasion of Russia in 1941 at a 1/25 scale. So, you know, you literally have one Panzer Division instead of 25 of them or so. And it was like a campaign system. I have that. And I had Combined Arms. And I got Command Decision, the second edition one. But there's things I liked about that game, but a lot of it that I wouldn't be able to tolerate now. Just mainly you don't have meaningful decisions to make every turn. There's almost always well, it's obvious we have to do this kind of thing. You know, you're never going to move really fast so that you don't get to shoot at anybody, except in the last phase. Ah, you're American, but you're retired and moved to the UK. My wife is from the UK. Excellent. Oh, cool. Excellent. Do you get a lot of, we don't care how you did it, used to do it back there? We don't care how you do it in the new world. This is how you do it here. Good old bathtub campaigns, yeah. I still have it floating around somewhere. One of the things I need to organize to be able to find that stuff when I get a wild hair on my ass. I want to look at something, you know. How's the light on this now? I guess there's a little bit more light. I'm going to do a video on this display case, but what, there's 8 of you guys? Yeah, I'll show you. Earlier I was showing what the, oh no, we don't need to undo this. No. Thank you. We need to rotate this. This is what I was working on yesterday. This is the case back here that the miniatures are in. Got to wait for more light in here to, I think I'm going to light it, but I'm not sure how I'm going to do it and make and that it doesn't look all like crappy. Because the lighting is nice if it works, but I have a feeling that I'm going to have to push the things towards the back so that I can have the lighting from the front somehow. I don't know. If it's too difficult, I don't need to put a light in there. It's just mainly to keep my stuff in there from getting dust. But that's what I worked on about way too many hours yesterday putting that thing together. It wasn't difficult. It was just time consuming. Good old Swedish technology. All right, well, I already got this mix in here, so let's go ahead and do his bronze, which I didn't talk about that. I don't use straight bronze for these guys. I had a little bit of, I mix almost like a 50-50 with some type of a silver color. I like it better. It just doesn't look right, all bronze. I don't care if it's realistic. It just doesn't look right to me, so. Yeah, something like that. I guess I need to paint this as well. I tell you what, I'm going to use straight bronze for this part. Somebody, I forget who it was suggesting I try doing some contrast paints. And so yesterday while I was putting this thing on, I was watching a couple of videos. A couple of guys did really professional videos, not like the ones I do. I just kind of throw shit together. You know, I don't want to spend 6 hours editing a video. But real pro guys talking about contrast paints, doing comparison. 2 guys in particular. And I don't think I'm going to get any. It just, the problem is they're all over the place. Some of them cover really well. Some of them don't. I don't know. Maybe I will, but my incentive in getting them after watching that couple of, I guess both videos were like half an hour long. They were really thorough videos. I'm like, they just didn't leave me wanting to experiment with that because it seemed like some colors worked a different way than another. It just seemed really rather strange. So. Seems like they're hard to control. I'm not giving up on them yet, but I went from, man, I'll try some to, I don't know. So, and they're not really geared for me. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter a whole lot, but. All right. Headband. Well, let's figure out what color we're going to do his battle sarong. Do you or anybody in your circle play Napoleonics? Yes. I prefer 15mm using Age of Eagles rules. They're Fire and Fury based and pretty easy and fast playing set. So Joel that comes down, which is Mitch's friend from Illinois. He just retired down in this area. He's about an hour away, but he comes and plays with him on Mondays before we do our game. His Napoleonics are all set up for DBN, and he has a lot of figures. And Mitch, from way back when, used to play Napoleon's battles. All his stuff is for Napoleon's battles. And he has a bunch of that stuff as well. Currently painting Württembergers, mounted Jaegers, and early Imperial Roman cav at the same time. Wow. Dipping toes into chosen men sometime soon. Contrast paints are good over zenithal and even a satin varnish. Zenithal, yeah, I know what that is. I did some of that on the dinosaur. Yeah, I got to do zenithal with spray cans. I'm not getting into the airbrush territory. I don't want to spend my time cleaning or painting in the garage that's hot. All right. Sarong time. Right. It's sarong time. Okay, enough of that. We'll use... No, we already have a yellow colored bastard, dude. Let's do this. Here. You like a value sketch undercoat. What did I paint? The church I did recently for my Pope. I did it with a white undercoat, and it's weird. It's weird because I'm like watercolors, so I've got to like paint. I normally paint the darkest and then paint the lightest. I've been doing that for 35 years. 35 years? No, that's not true. Since the mid-90s. And I like that method. It's very forgiving. But having to paint the lightest and then the darkest, the problem is if you screw up, it's difficult to fix. It's fixable, but it's like, I kind of have to think everything backwards. And then think of it as like, well, why do I have to reinvent the way I'm doing things? I mean, I did end up painting that church with a white undercoat because I was out of black. So I'm like, it's either that or I'm not painting it. And I wanted to paint it right then and there. And it turned out just fine, but I did kind of have to get outside my brain and think backwards a little bit. But the dinosaur that I did that with glazes. So I created like a heavy wash with the paints, and that was fun to do. It was something different. So if I paint any more of those, I'll probably continue doing it that way. I don't think I zenithalled that. I may have. I don't know. That seems like an awfully technical word for something that's just called, you know, spraying white from the top as shadows and creating shadows, you know. Zenithal sounds like, you know, a company that makes like space weapons or something. Weapons to fight in space. Zenithal Corporation. Something from Borderlands or something. You guys ever played Borderlands? You know what I'm talking about. There's a guy, I mentioned it yesterday, painting his Gaslands cars in Borderlands style. That was pretty cool, but that's a lot of freaking work. That's a lot of work. I'll look at stuff. It's like, man, that's really neat, but man, I don't have time for this. I'd like to get more done than just like, you know, a couple things. That's a funny game. Storyline's bunk, but the interactions between some of the stuff that happens is really, really hilarious. I played a fair amount of it. But it's extremely grindy. Don't need airbrush, just add wash and dry brush under your filters. When you want to crank them out, use colored rattle cans from dark to light. Rattle cans. Man, rattle cans have gotten so expensive. Man, they used to be cheap. Now they're like, you want them, how much for this? Rattle cans. Yep. That was one part of my process that I did speed up, because my sealing process used to be spray gloss, let dry, spray flat, let dry, and then I added the brush on flat. And they ran out of the spray flat I was used to using. So now I just skipped that step. I just spray gloss and then just paint flat. When I paint the flat, it's super thick, so it's going to be protected. I started using Citadel paints when I moved to the UK, and I like them a lot, but I hate the pots. Other than a few colors, I'm going to switch to Vallejo or Army Painter. You don't like these things? The original ones were good. These are close to being, well, talk about getting screwed on mount. This is 17.5 milliliters. What's in here? 12. I guess it's not. Yeah, it adds up. These were good. The in-between one sucked. Was absolutely horrible. I think the best paints that are out there that I've played with are these guys right here. And these guys are available in the UK. They are so smooth the way they go on. This is the best stuff out there, in my opinion. I don't know how their metallics are, as I don't have any, but I love these paints. I like all of these and the Vallejos as well. The Vallejos are hit and miss. Some colors are better than others. They're definitely better than Army Painter. I'm not a big fan of Army Painter. MTN have the best color range. I have no idea who that is. MTN. Yeah, if you watch how I paint, I just need the color as a starting block, and then I modify it up and down. So I'm more worried about the consistency of the paint than the color per se. Not that the color isn't important, but I tinker with all of them. I don't use the 3-color method. I probably should, but it's too late. It's too late. I wasn't done with this color. I got sidetracked. Well, that's too much of a difference between the two. Of course, we can just thin it down and then go over it, and it'll be more opaque. That'll work. So I paint kind of in a thick wash type, but not really washing, just, I don't know. I think I started doing it this way because I was adding so many layers that I didn't want it to get all clumpy. So if you do it thin, you're not covering up over any detail. I don't know. This was before the internet, so if I'd started painting when the internet was around, then I may have had a different method. But this is, I probably saw some people painting in a certain way and then tried to replicate it in. Only thing I've added is the thinner, which honestly keeps the paint flowing smoother and not clumping up on the brush as much, so I have better control, really more than anything else. And that's just kind of my own spin on it. That, I mean, somebody else I'm sure probably uses it as well, but I paint what works for me. And for the longest time, for my white and black, I used to use craft paint because I was going through so much of it. But now the wet palette, now that I'm not going through it so much, I've reverted back to using the Vallejo color because it does cover better. And the craft paint there was a shortage of. I don't know if it still is, but it's difficult to get a hold of. It was like almost everybody was doing crafty stuff that had never done crafty stuff before. It's like, oh, we're locked down at home. All right, let's paint shit, you know? Soak the rattle can in warm water between shakes and use a graffiti artist cap almost as good as an airbrush. Vallejo found I have to add an agitator like a few BBs. Yep, I got a whole pack of those. I think MIG ammo includes them in their paints. I don't have any MIG stuff. I know about them. Honestly, I get mixed up between MIG and the AK. I think it's the same designer. One guy started one thing and then started his own company, and I don't remember what it is. One of my favorite painters is a big fan of using their stuff. I just don't do tank things and 20th century stuff much anymore. So I haven't done it really since MIG has been around. So I don't have any of their stuff because of that. I haven't done World War II in so long, since filters weren't even a thing. This whole do it Panzer Gray and add a blue filter. Like, what the? That wasn't around in the, in the 90s, or if it was, nobody knew about it because you couldn't communicate your findings with other people really as readily. But I would have some of their stuff if I was doing that kind of painting. All right. Let's add. What happens if we do this? Let's just do this. Let's add some of these dark brown highlights to this guy. So it kind of takes us in a different direction. We don't want everybody with straight black hair. We also don't want any red-haired Assyrians. Supposedly that was a thing. There were some Assyrians that were red-haired. It just doesn't look right. You as the painter, when something doesn't look right to you, you don't do it, Creative privilege. Is that a thing, or that I just invented? You get to decide what it is as the creator. I wasn't going to give him a white headband, but I think I am, because that adds a little bit of brightness to his face. It's not really that important. It's not like this guy's got to have a headband of such and such a color. Okay. How long have we been on? See, look, no disconnects today. We would have had 3 by yesterday. I don't know what it is. I didn't do anything different. And then this guy should be done. That's 5. That's 5 of 14. And they look better when they're sprayed. I don't know what it is, but it is. All right, I need to go grab some more liquids. I'll be right back. may have another half hour. Maybe. We'll see. Maybe not. I do need to mow, so yay. That's got to be done, and I don't want to pay somebody else to do it. We got else is different. Another one-off. All right, we'll paint this guy next. This guy looks like he's got a headband, but he doesn't. Maybe he just has a book one mullet. Bronze Age mullet. That's 5 done. This is 6. So it'll take a couple more weeks to get these guys done. Then we'll have 2 camp, the baggage element to do / camp, and finish up the chariot. Yeah, it's gonna take a while. What are we in October? I don't think I'll be done with them by the end of October. I think it's gonna be the end of November. In November, I'm not going to be here much, so. Well, the second half, anyhow. That's the plan. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because I need to, before it gets too warm out there, I want to take care of that. I'm going to finish up by cleaning this brush so we don't start off with a dirty brush. But I appreciate you guys coming by. Maybe be entertained for a little bit, and hopefully you got some painting done. If you don't let this stuff get too bad, it comes off pretty easy. Anyhow, not sure if we'll be back on later today. But thanks for stopping by, and we'll catch you guys next time. See ya.